like Australia, I think the focus will be on Russia, just in terms of the US's military posture, if you like, to the rest of the world. I mean, the State of the Union speech is not the only speech that has been changed. The nuclear posture review that the US government was scheduled to release, or is scheduled to release in the next few weeks, I think you'd find that that will be undergoing some very serious revisions too, in light of what Russia's been saying about its nuclear arsenal and indeed the general massive geopolitical changes we've seen around the world. You know, for instance, Germany, promising to spend 2% on its military, which it's never done since the Second World War, and also Japan now too saying that even it is considering having nuclear weapons in its country, or at least letting them be stationed there. So yes, there's been enormous changes in that front in just a few weeks.
And Annalise, we haven't even mentioned the global pandemic. Just weeks ago, perhaps we would have thought that might have taken more of a centre stage in this address, but it's almost like an issue now there in the US.
Well, I'm sure President Biden will do everything to make sure it's not a sidebar issue, because that's one of the few areas he's claiming some victories in, that he saw the vaccination program roll out eventually quite well, and that's where they want to really focus attention. But one of the other interesting aspects of this State of the Union is now we're starting to see these the explosions ramp up in Ukraine, and that seems like a deliberate tactic of Putin to increase shelling at the same time. The commentary around this is that there's going to be split-screen coverage across prime time in America of President Biden making one of the most consequential speeches of any president during a land war in Europe since 1945, at the same time that we're getting this instant live visual of civilians being bombarded. It's going to add the pressure onto him about what he's going to do to lead NATO out of this, whether the US should be more involved. And that's polling really quite positively among both Democrat and Republican voters. That's not a common position for Joe Biden to find himself in, a point of unity across America. We know crises make the leader, and this could be his chance to turn things around. And certainly when you look at how the last year has gone for him, his approval ratings are incredibly low. The latest one, at most optimistic, has 37% of people approving of his performance. It's much closer to the 20s when you look at an aggregate. This is really his last chance, especially before midterms, to make his mark.
Simon Jackman, that's a good point, isn't it? I think a lot of analysts will have one eye on the State of the Union speech and another eye on what's happening in Ukraine over the next hour or so as this address goes to air. We all saw how Vladimir Putin just this time last week chose his timing in terms of when that UN Security Council emergency meeting got underway to make his own address to the Russian people about invading Ukraine. A lot of nerves as to exactly what the Russian president has planned for today.
Yeah, look, if it's any consolation, it's the middle of the night or coming into the early morning in Moscow and Eastern Europe. So perhaps, it hasn't stopped Vladimir Putin before. The prospect of that split-screen coverage, though, you mentioned, I think still remains a real one. I think the bigger point, though, is this window of being able to point to some success with respect to rallying NATO and the Europeans and perhaps shocking them out of their complacency about, the international security situation. Right now, that looks like a net win for Biden. It's leadership and its foresight with respect to this situation, releasing intelligence, getting weapons into the hands of the Ukrainians. But I just can't help but wonder, what does the picture look like 2 days, 3 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now? And is Biden got less of a happy story to point to about Ukraine, and it's Putin who, perhaps if brutally though, has really seized the initiative and taken back what for tonight, at least in Washington, is sort of a ray of sunshine for an otherwise pretty troubled Biden presidency.
Adam, how would you characterise the appetite in the United States for further intervention from the US president when it comes to what we're seeing in Ukraine?
Well, look, I think the president has stressed a number of times very deliberately that US forces would never actually serve in a theatre of war in Ukraine. They've ruled out supporting a no-fly zone. I mean, I think the interesting point here is that the president will probably have to be reasonably careful in his speech not to be too belligerent, to inflame Vladimir Putin too much. I mean, of course, it's been wonderful that Ukraine has repelled the Russians so far so successfully. But because the Russian invasion has been such a shocking disaster for Russia, such a huge embarrassment to Putin himself, and shredded Russia's reputation globally, you do wonder what Putin will be planning next to try to make up for it. I mean, there's a lot of talk about his mental stability in the American press at the moment by serious experts. So I think that's a factor too that would have been on the minds of the speechwriters.
Let's take our viewers live to Washington. Here comes the US President Joe Biden.
Okay, let's see. Maybe. Let's see, and then I'll get you released in. Yes, you are. Good to see you. Chief, how are you? Thank
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, General. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Please. Thank you so much. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President, our First Lady and Second Gentleman, members of Congress and the Cabinet, Justices of the Supreme Court, my fellow Americans. Last year, COVID-19 kept us apart. This year, we're finally together again. Tonight, we meet as Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, but most importantly, as Americans, with the duty to one another, to America, to the American people, to the Constitution, and an unwavering resolve that freedom will always triumph over tyranny. Thank you. 6 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin sought to shake the very foundations of the free world, thinking he could make it bend to his menacing ways. But he badly miscalculated. He thought he could roll into Ukraine and the world would roll over. Instead, he met with a wall of strength he never anticipated or imagined. He met the Ukrainian people. And President Zelensky, to every Ukrainian, their fearlessness, their courage, their determination literally inspires the world. Groups of citizens blocking tanks with their bodies, everyone from students to retirees to teachers, turned soldiers defending their homeland. And in this struggle, President Zelensky said in his speech to the European Parliament, "Light will win over darkness." The Ukrainian ambassador to the United States is here tonight, sitting with the First Lady. Let each of us, if you're able to stand and send an unmistakable signal to the world of Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She's bright, she's strong, she's resolved. Yes, we, the United States of America, stand with the Ukrainian people. Throughout our history, we've learned this lesson. When dictators do not pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos. They keep moving, and the cost, the threats to America and America to the world keeps rising. That's why the NATO alliance was created, to secure peace and stability in Europe after World War II. The United States is a member, along with 29 other nations, united, and that's what we did. We stayed united. We prepared extensively and carefully. We spent months building coalitions of other freedom-loving nations in Europe and the Americas, from America to the Asian and African continents, to confront Putin. Like many of you, I spent countless hours unifying our European allies. We shared with the world in advance what we knew Putin was planning and precisely how he would try to falsify and justify his aggression. We countered Russia's lies with the truth. And now that he's acted, the free world is holding him accountable, along with 27 members of the European Union, including France, Germany, Italy, as well as countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and many others, even Switzerland, are inflicting pain on Russia and supporting the people of Ukraine. Putin is now isolated from the world more than he has ever been. Together, along with our allies, we are right now enforcing powerful economic sanctions. We're cutting off Russia's largest banks from the international financial system, preventing Russia's central bank from defending the Russian ruble, making Putin's $630 billion war fund worthless. We're choking Russia's access. We're choking Russia's access to technology that will sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come. Tonight, I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who bilked billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more. The United States, I mean it. The United States Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for your ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming. The ruble has already lost 30% of its value. The Russian stock market has lost 40% of its value, and trading remains suspended. The Russian economy is reeling, and Putin alone is the one to blame. Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance. We're giving more than $1 billion of direct assistance to Ukraine, and will continue to aid the Ukrainian people as they defend their country and help ease their suffering. But let me be clear, our forces are not engaged and will not engage in the conflict with Russian forces in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies in the event that Putin decides to keep moving west. For that purpose, we have mobilized American ground forces, air squadrons, ship deployments to protect NATO countries, including Poland, Romania, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And as I've made crystal clear, the United States and our allies will defend every inch of territory that is NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. Every single inch. And we're clear-eyed. Ukrainians are fighting back with pure courage. But the next few days, weeks, and months will be hard on them. Putin has unleashed violence and chaos. But while he may make gains on the battlefield, he'll pay a continuing high price over the long run. And a pound of Ukrainian people, proud, proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch of energy they have. They've known 30 years of independence, have repeatedly shown that they will not tolerate anyone who tries to take their country backwards. To all Americans, I'll be honest with you, as I always promised I would be. A Russian dictator invading a foreign country has cost around the world. And I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, and that we use every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers. Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world. America will lead that effort, releasing 30 million barrels of our own strategic petroleum reserve. And we stand ready to do more if necessary, united with our allies. These steps will help blunt gas prices here at home, but I know news about what's happening can seem alarming to all Americans. But I want you to know, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. When the history of this era is written, Putin's war in Ukraine will have left Russia weaker and the rest of the world stronger. While it shouldn't have taken something so terrible for people around the world to see what's at stake, now everyone sees it clearly. We see the unity among leaders of nations, a more unified Europe, a more unified West. We see unity among the people who are gathering in cities and large crowds around the world, even in Russia, to demonstrate their support for the people of Ukraine. In the battle between democracy and autocracies, democracies are rising to the moment, and the world is clearly choosing the side of peace and security. This is the real test, and it's going to take time. So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people. To our fellow Ukrainian Americans who forged the deep bond that connects our two nations, we stand with you. We stand with you. Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never, never weaken the resolve of the free world.